Catherine of Genoa's spiritual dialogue is very insightful because it discusses the battle between the spirit versus the flesh. And she does this through using three characters: the body, soul, and self-love. These three characters are personified, and they engage in a dialogue where the body submits its request, the soul submits its request, and self-love is supposed to mediate between the requests of the body versus the requests of the soul. And so throughout this dialogue, the soul has certain perspectives and certain desires to seek God spiritually, to fast, to engage in weeks of contemplative prayer, where the body says, "Oh, you've brought death upon me," and self-love seems to join in with the body. And so the soul is in a dire kind of pool, where the soul is being pulled by the body and self-love to do whatever the body desires. And this would lead the soul into acting in sinful ways, although this is not explicitly stated. Although in the beginning, both the body and the soul agree to, and I quote, "Let us," the body and soul answered that they would gladly travel all together and accept his judgment, with the proviso that no offense be given to God, and should any of them sin, the other two would reprove him. So in the dialogue, the self-love is supposed to be the guiding force, although the self-love seems to be, towards the end of the dialogue, joining in on whatever the body desires. So the soul has to rise up and stop the insurrection that has led the soul to some very difficult, emotional kind of expressions of pain and agony to what they have done. Now, the soul at the end declares, and I quote, the soul replies, "Now I clearly see what I must do, prompted by God's light and the voice of reason. It is, however, a higher reason that I will listen to, one that, hurting no one and making it impossible for any to justly complain, may grant to each his just need. Let me do as I will then, for you will lead a life far happier than you can possibly imagine. Now I will once more be in charge. If you wish to serve me, I will take care of all your needs." So the soul, in fact, is going to be the one to claim that it will take power or possession over this situation again. And the body isn't too happy about it. Now, this is where we get some insight into the treatise of purgatory, where we see a kind of mention of purgatory in the work that Catherine has composed. It says here, the body replies earlier, "When I, the body, die, you will have no means of adding to your glory, nor any time for cleansing yourself from your imperfections. You will have to do that work in purgatory." And so here we hear the first reference to purgatory from the specific writings of Catherine in her dialogue. Now, this is just the beginning of her real full work on purgatory, which is in the same group of writing, although often separated. But in her work, Treatise on Purgatory, she is quoted as saying, "See all things," the souls in purgatory, "not in themselves, nor by themselves, but as they are in God, on whom they are more intent than on their own suffering. For the least vision they have of God overbalances all the woes and all the joys that can be conceived. Yet their joy in God does by no means abate their pain. This process of purification, to which I see the souls in purgatory subjected, I feel within myself." End quote. So she explains purgatory as this place where they see God and the glory is so magnificent, and yet it is also a place of pain, of purification, of waiting until they reach that point where they can be in eternal glory. This kind of idea or concept is mostly drawn from the life of Catherine, where she explains from her salvation, or better put, her confessatory experience, that she was so impacted by God. In a Pentecostal way, she fell before the presence of God, unconscious or within the state of just interaction with God. And then she wakes up from this spiritual encounter, and explains it as a true knowledge of her sin, and yet a true knowledge of God's mercy, love, and forgiveness. And this dual experience is what she really kind of conveys in purgatory. And so we see in her treatise that it is more a reflection of her own experience of just true understanding of sin, and yet the glory of God in the midst of it. And so she really kind of embodies her own writings on purgatory.